Here. Thank you for joining us. I'm Pete Graychuk with North49. I'm joined by my colleague Etienne Grobler. He is the Chief Architect and President of North49. Etienne's going to show you through the live product. I'm going to introduce some of these concepts with just a few slides to kind of get you accustomed to what we're going to speak about and what the market is demanding. And then we'll pop into live product and Etienne will do the bulk of the presentation from there. You can feel free to enter any questions into the question field. We are recording this session, so we'll make it available afterwards if you want to share it with colleagues who weren't able to attend. So with that, let's get things rolling. So things have been changing over the past several years. Customers have been demanding I guess a higher level of service from the vendors that they deal with. And this has been pretty common in our personal lives. I mean, anybody who's done any shopping on the online platforms like Amazon have come to expect a certain level of service. And more over the past few years, this has been spilling over into our business lives. As business buyers, we want our vendors to provide us with this same level of service, and often it's self-service. Most folks want to be able to do their own research and even buy the products online, but only speak to somebody when they want to. And with that, basically, it means that vendors now have to provide that level of service for their customers. But it's not all, that's not all bad news for the vendor. Basically, what it means is it's got huge benefits for the consumer. Number one, they're demanding it. And number two, then they get to be at their own control of their own destiny, so to speak, on their own time. They get to do the things that they want to do when they want to do it. They're not waiting for the office of their vendor to be open so they can communicate with somebody and then sit on hold waiting for someone to be available to answer their questions. Now, the benefit from the merchant side of things is it does have a significant impact on reducing your overhead from an administrative standpoint, because there's a lot of transactions or interactions that happen with your customers that are very routine that they could easily do themselves, like can't find my invoice, can you resend it, how much do I owe you, can I pay this bill, can you, what's the status of my order, all kinds of things like that that are very easily handled by the customer themselves if they were given some means to do that. And the beauty of that for the merchant is it does save time, it does save money, it's just an all-around benefit to everybody. So we're starting to see a lot more adoption of this stuff, even in the business-to-business space, not just business to consumer. And since the pandemic hit, this demand has only accelerated. It's gotten to the point where businesses need to have some kind of online capability, or they're just not going to do business the way they did before. And I think a reality that's coming out here, and most of the industry experts are echoing this, consumers aren't going to want to give this up, even when the pandemic is over. They're going to come to realize the convenience of doing things this way, and they will demand it from the people that they do business with. And in fact, I've even seen a statistic recently that said 43% of buyers have changed their vendor because they didn't offer an online option for them to buy. Now, you don't want to find yourself in that situation. And making the move to online is not as daunting as it was once in the past. So what we're going to talk about today is the North49 Customer Portal. And you can think of this as an easy, quick, and inexpensive way to bring your business online to provide your customers with this self-service capability. And it can be something as simple as a click to pay on an invoice. So in Sage 300, when you generate an invoice in a PDF document, you send it out to your customers by email. Either in that invoice itself or in the body of the email, you can include a link, and that link will take them to a screen that looks like this, and it allows them to pay that document. And that's all it does. Very simple. So it's a nice, quick way to give your customers the convenience to pay online. Now, obviously, you're going to need to be hooked up with a payment provider of some sort, and North49 has committed to integrate to every major payment provider in North America. So you just need to let us know who you're dealing with. We've got several under our belt already. So let us know who it is, and we will let you know about what it takes to make that happen. So this is the very simplest form of what a customer portal might offer you. Simply click to pay. It's on the invoice. That's it. Something very simple. If you go more with the full-blown portal, what it offers you and your customers is the ability to do a lot more stuff. You can look at every document that sits inside of Sage 300 if you want to expose that to your customers, and that's at your discretion. You can control that. They can pay multiple invoices at one time. So they'll be presented with a screen that shows them everything that's open. They can select multiple invoices and pay them all at the same time. And incidentally, what happens is when a payment is made online, the portal will actually append into an AR receipt batch specifically there for credit card payments. And if there's not one open, we will open it. And the reason we want to have a separate batch for credit card payments is so you have some means to reconcile that when your bank statement comes in. And we even provide the ability for customers to store that card token, you know, that masked card ID that you see with all the X's and just the last 4 digits. We can actually store that so a customer doesn't have to re-enter their card details every time they want to make a payment. And if you're using one of the integrated card processors that Sage 300 supports, we can even store that inside of Sage 300 so people who are working inside Sage 300 can use it there as well. And there's even some order entry capabilities in the new portal. Since the pandemic hit, you can imagine we got a lot of demands for folks. I need to get online. I need to get online quickly. So we went to work and added a bunch of functionality to the customer portal. And one of those things we added was this quick online order entry form. Now, I don't want to overcharacterize this as a web store. However, some of the capabilities that we're building into it and we'll continue to build into it will start to close the gap to what a web store is. But right now, this is really designed to be a means for your existing customers to place orders with you. It's not to go out there and hunt for new customers. It's for existing customers. And Etienne's going to show you how this works. And the portal and the order entry form and all this stuff will continue to evolve over time as we add new features and functionality, as we hear from customers who are using it about things they'd like to have in the system. We will continue to add it to the portal. Now, the portal is designed to be set and forget. Now, we do provide a full-featured administrative portal, kind of a back end to this thing where you as the merchant can control what happens on that portal, what documents customers can see, how they can pay their invoices, and by what means. All this kind of information is available, and Etienne will touch on all of that as well when he goes through the live product. But really, that's not something you have to worry about on a day-to-day basis. Typically, you'll set it up and you'll forget about it. You don't have to go back in there. It requires very little to no maintenance. It just does what it does. We have a bit of communication software we call Connect, and Connect basically just sits there on your Sage 300 server and waits for the portal to ask it a question, and then it returns back the answer. The portal itself stores no data. So none of this data that we're talking about here is ever replicated into our data centers. We read it live and we feed data live back into Sage 300 on demand. So when that button gets pushed, that's when we execute. That's when we either retrieve the information or send that information back into Sage. And to facilitate that, we do require a Sage user license. So do keep that in mind. And typically for our exclusive use, because what happens is the portal will take that user license and hold it and use it so that when a customer logs in and says, do something, we don't have to send back a message that says, sorry, try again later, I can't get in. We want to have that license available to us all the time. So that's enough for me on my bit of a preamble there. I'm going to pass it back over to Etienne, and he can take it over from here and show you the live product. You there?
Thank you, Peter. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Let me share my screen. You should see a very nice blank window screen. As Peter said, we do consumer license. I just want to elaborate on that a little bit. The portal is written to specifically work with the capability of Sage 300 and the Sage 300 views. And the reason we consume a license is that we actually use the Sage 300 technology to serve up data up onto the web. The benefit for you as a merchant is that the portal is going to survive upgrades. So it is not an issue with you having to come back to North49 when you do an upgrade. The portal is simply just going to continue working. With that then being said, Peter started off with click to pay. That's probably a good entry point for the demo. As we go along, please be aware that you can type in any questions that you have into the chat box. Peter will keep an eye on that and interrupt me as necessary. I will be able to respond at the end of the demo. Click to Pay, as Peter said, is the ability for you to embed a link on an invoice, on a PDF, in an email that says, click here and pay your account. I've mocked up one here in a Word document. Ronald Black, you owe us money, click here to pay. Ronald Black will simply get this document, click on it, and it's going to open up that screen which Peter said. As the screen opens up, we will then verify that document against the internal Sage 300 system. So the user, the amounts, the dates of the invoice, etc., was not sent over to the portal, only the customer number and the invoice number. Based on that information, the portal then sent a ping through to Sage 300 and said, give me the detail of this particular document. Based on the abilities of your specific gateway or payment gateway, the payment options will be available: credit card, ACH, or electronic check. You may enable or disable these features as you want to, and hopefully I'll get around to enough time to show you that. With a customer here, they can go ahead and click, go ahead and pay this document. Let's go and insert a document here, a card. And we'll put a CVV in here and say, go ahead and pay this document. You'd see that we've taken you away from the portal to your payment provider's gateway. They enter the information on the gateway. That keeps us on the right side of PCI compliance. We never touch the card, so there's no PCI compliance issues, and the payment's been made. When the payment now gets made, a number of things happen. Number one, the customer is going to get an email. Number two, you are going to get notified of that internally. And of course, at this point, the customer can go ahead and print themselves a copy of the receipt here. They can save a copy as a PDF, do whatever they want to do with this document, and it's now been paid. Let me just halt at this moment and show a number of underlying features which runs throughout the portal. First of all, this document has now been notified to you internally, or you've been notified of this particular payment receipt. If you use a product like Slack, which is a free messaging system, or Microsoft Teams, you would get a notification in a channel that there's been a payment if you set that up. Otherwise, you will get email notification, and I'll show you how that is set up in the merchant portal as well. I have opened my Slack here, and you'll see that there is now one new message. I can click on that message, and here it is. This is this payment for invoice number 61 of 2,335. Here we go. Just been made by Ronald Black, so I have instant notification. I have also received an email. Let me open that up, drag that over here. My email system has let me know that there has been a payment made, and Ronald Black likewise is going to get a notification of that email. So
Ed,
yes, sir.
Let me interrupt for a second here. We do have a couple of questions, and I did answer them in the chat and the Q&A, but maybe it's a good idea to address them here as well. I mentioned in the beginning that we've committed to support all North American processors, and the question came, what about Jamaica? And of course, my answer is really it's wide open. We can support processors just about anywhere. We just need to know who they are so we can investigate it and find out what it'll take to make that integration happen. Most of these processors want this type of activity to happen, and they provide the means for us to do it. So we just need to know who we're dealing with, and we can investigate that. Second question was, as far as Click to Pay is concerned, does a customer have to register on the portal in order to use Click to Pay? And my answer was no, not for Click to Pay. And
no, not for Click to Pay.
Right?
Yeah, not for Click to Pay. No.
All right. That's it for me. Thanks.
Okay. I do want to drill into a number of other things at this point, but I also want to show that the transaction has been immediately written into the Sage 300 system. So if we, here is the Sage 300, which is backing up that portal which we're looking at of sample company. If I go to transaction processing, receipt batch list, you'll see that I have a receipt batch here. If we open that up, Here is that payment having been made by Ronald Black, amount 2335 on invoice number 61. So we will come back and have a look at invoice number 61 a number of times, but you can see that the transaction has been immediately entered on today's date here. So the transaction went directly from my portal into the Sage 300 system. If the user clicks that link again, so they go ahead and they say, I want to pay this again, we do pass over the customer number and the invoice number, and at this point we will check and verify this invoice is no longer available for payment. So we will check even pending amounts in the Sage batches to see whether a payment has been made or can be made on this particular document. So the system is going to interact and speak to the Sage 300 system live as we go ahead. Let's go ahead and log in here. This is the typical login screen. Will be, of course, your graphics at the top, your welcome message, etc., instructions, the login, the pay invoice would just take us back to that screen we came from now. And then on this screen, the user can literally fill in a document if you allow them to do so and say, I want to pay, invoice number 62 at this point, and we'll go ahead and verify that invoice number 62 can be paid, or likewise, if they try and repay invoice number 61, we're going to tell them they cannot do that. The system is multilingual. We currently have English and French. We will be working on alternate languages as the need arises, and we'll be happy to work with anybody that wants to do that. These, of course, did not translate because they are user-entered data, so they're not going to translate with the rest of the system. So if you do run a primarily French or other language version, then you would want to tailor your welcome message and the message underneath here to reflect that. Registration happens in one of two primary fashions. One, you could simply let the user send an email request for a registration, or you can allow them to self-register. This is also a setting inside of the system, so you control what that does. If you allow them to self-register, we will ask them a verification question. What's your zip code, or what was the last invoice number or the last payment you made? And if that is correctly answered and the user goes ahead and registers, you may choose to give them immediate access to the system or wait for you to approve that. So the access to the system is controlled by you in whatever fashion you believe will give you the sufficient security that you need. We have enforced strict password controls here so that we make it a little bit more complicated to guess. The communication between the portal and your internal system is IP to IP encrypted. If you have any questions on security, please feel free to ask. Let's go ahead and log in. When the user logs in, the first thing they can potentially see is a message from you to them. This message particularly is customer to merchant, and it's controlled within the comment section of the accounts receivable system. So this note to viewer, this pop-up message, etc., was specifically sent to this particular customer. Let's go have a look at that. So if we go to customers, pull up the account, that is Ronald Black, so account number 1200, and we go through to not credit cards, comments. Here are these comments, note to viewer. This is it. This is the comment the user is seeing. So it allows you to communicate with a particular customer. And that could be, please call us regarding your latest order, or happy birthday, Bob. Whatever you want to communicate directly with that customer one-on-one, you can do so directly from within accounts receivable. When the customer clicks the OK button on the portal, we will change the comment type from web to web acknowledged, which will indicate to you that the customer has seen and has read that particular communication. If you want to, of course, you can drill down in your internal system to the order date and see when exactly that customer acknowledged that message if you want to go ahead and do so. You can stack them up, so you can continue adding messages here for the customer. And of course, here you have a history of the communication that you've had with that customer through the comments field. There is a second potential communication, and that is what we call a broadcast. A broadcast will be a message which you enter onto the admin portal of the customer portal, and that will broadcast across all customers logging in. We likewise keep a flag to say whether a customer has seen the broadcast message. So once they acknowledge, okay, they've seen the message, it's not going to continue popping up for them. And you can, of course, at any time reset that broadcast and rebroadcast out. A company-wide broadcast would be something like special COVID hours, whatever you want to broadcast to your entire customer base as they log into the system. Right, let's carry on. These are the basic functions of the portal: account activity, view transactions, pay my account, view orders, manage credit cards, etc. Based on what you activate at the time that you get the system, these icons will not be there. One more thing about the system is we have written it specifically to be compatible with mobile devices. So everything in the system is going to work well, whether you view it on a huge screen or whether you're going to view that on a mobile device. So on a mobile device, everything will just kind of fall into place as it should be falling into place. The menu, of course, at the top now becomes a slide open hamburger menu, as they call it, for mobile devices, and the system is going to work well. We made sure that the system can be driven without a mouse and a pointer, so it's going to work really well across whatever devices you want to use it. Again, the account activity is going to give the user a snapshot of their account. Your current balance is this. You've got 20 open invoices. This is sample data, so there's a few weird things about the data here. Your last statement dates, the number of open invoices, etc., your account, and then 3 years history. Because this is reading real time off your accounting system, this data will be up to date. There's nothing that needs to build or be synchronized or come online over time. The client is going to see this. So this is their purchase history from you as a merchant over the last number of years. Again, we've got French and English versions. So as we swap over here, the system is going to swap my language over into whatever appropriate language that the client wants to see. We do store the language in a cookie for that particular user. So when they access the portal again, they are going to access it in the language in which they left it off to do. Let's move on. I'm going to just go back to the menu here, or to the landing page. View transactions will do exactly what we expect from it to do. What we can do here is view the number of transactions per page, show all or open only. Open only is going to allow us to look at only documents with outstanding balances. So essentially, that is my current statement of account. You remember invoice number 61 here? It was being paid, so it's already showing up as being paid over here, despite the fact that in Sage it's sitting in a batch waiting to be posted. We do remember that your customer is looking at this data differently than what you perhaps is. So we do approach this from a customer-centric view. According to the customer, they paid it. And so that's what they're going to see. According to you, within Sage 300, you still need to post that batch and complete day in for that to happen. Transaction type allows you to limit down or to select what I want to see. These options are available to you in the admin portal, so you could choose not to have some of these available for the customer to look at. And of course, the customer can now drill down or narrow down his search to whatever he wants to see. Once he has that, he can drill down into a particular document, and we will display the document on screen. As you expect, they'll be able to print or PDF this copy for themselves, and they can go ahead and do that. We will drill down to the originating system for these documents. So if a document was generated within order entry, we will go back and fetch the detail from order entry. If the document was originated within accounts receivable, we'll fetch the detail in accounts receivable. The customer is always going to get the most complete version of the document that they possibly can get. Before we go to pay account, let's just have a look at managed credit cards, which currently is an optional add-on for you to activate. This allows the customer to store a credit card so they do not have to re-enter it as they come in to make a payment. Just to be clear, we do not store the credit card. We store what's called a token or the GUID. So we are still staying on the right side of PCI compliance here. But the GUID gives us sufficient information for the customer to recognize what they're dealing with here. So we will have the card type, the last 4 digits of the card, the name on the card, the expiry of the card. You are legally allowed to keep this data without a PCI compliance or payment card industry compliance issue. You also have the option, if you're running an integrated card payment processor like Paya or Paytelligence, InstaPay, to either store the card on the portal, so the portal is going to keep track of these cards for you, or store the cards directly within Sage 300. And that's what we've done here. So on this particular portal, these cards actually the data is residing within Sage 300. So let's go have a look. Ronald Black has 2 cards here, which he can see. Let's go and have a look at Ronald Black over here at credit cards. They are the 2 credit cards which Ronald Black can see. So card number 111 and 5454. These are the 2 cards which he's seeing on the portal. One is expired, so it's not going to allow him to use it when he makes a payment, but we are notifying him that we have the card. And the customer can go ahead and quote unquote delete a card. What we really do in the background, we never will delete a record out of your Sage 300 system. What we do is we flag that card as inactive within Sage. So the card is still there. You can still see it. You can complete any open transactions which might still lie against that card, but the user is not going to see that card when they log back in again. Let's go ahead and pay an account. We have a number of stored cards ready there. We have a list of transactions. 61 is missing. Let's go ahead and pay this range over here and just clear that range off. So we've selected a number of transactions. Typically, again, in a real life environment, the customer is not going to have this mess. This is sample data, so everybody is playing with it, and we're getting these extraordinary long lists of open documents, but it will be a lot more contained. He has the option to select all if he wants to just clear his account and pay it off. Go ahead and make the payment. So now we're going to stop and give the customer a record of what we're going to do. Here are the documents that you want to pay. You do have stored cards, and you've selected one as a default. You can also use a new card, and if you do, you may choose to save that card on the system or not. And if your payment provider provides for electronic check, EFT or ACH payments, they can go ahead and do that here, and we will take that payment via ACH or electronic check. If the client selects to use a stored card, we're not going to stop at that payment processing screen we did when doing a click to pay, because we now have the card information. So when they say go ahead and make a payment, we don't have to do anything. We're just simply going to make the payment and come back to the user with the receipt. The user can now print a copy of that receipt, and all those usual things that we spoke about earlier is going to happen. So within Slack, I'll be able to go into my channels, go to Portal Accounts Receivable, and I'm going to see invoice number 61 paid, and I'm going to see that whole list of documents being paid there. So we are keeping track of this. We are notifying you of this, and I'll show you in the admin portal of how you can track and follow up on a payment if something does go wrong or missing, or the client has a query about what happened to a particular payment. Let's have a look at view orders. View orders is going to look at order entry, of course, and it's going to come up and show you the orders which sits inside the system. Again, so the user can select the number of documents they want to see per page. They can show all or open only. Open only is going to show them any orders which have not been completed. They can have a look at active, future, standing quotes. I am showing all here, so there are some quotes being shown on my system here. We can have a look at this in a order-centric way, so show me my open orders, or we can simply say, show me the items which I have on order. So this is going to give me a list of back-ordered items. We'll show you the documents on which they are. And of course, from any point here, the user can click down on a particular document. We'll retrieve that document for them. They can go ahead and pay that document. Let's go back and have a look back at this in a order fashion. Over here, the user can see these orders, so they can, click on a particular line and just see some detail of what's on that line. They can drill into a particular document, get a full copy of their document. They can, of course, print and PDF and do whatever they want to do with their document. So you've given the user the ability to check and see what's going on. We did change the way in which we display a particular document when the user drills into it from the way in which Sage does. If you're familiar with Sage order entry, you'll know that as you ship documents, the quantity ordered kind of diminishes. What we've done is we do a reverse engineering on that to make sense to the user. So we will show the quantity ordered. We'll show the quantity shipped and the quantity back ordered, and we will recalculate the quantity ordered as we ship the document. So the user will still see I ordered 5, 3 has been shipped, 2 on back order, instead of the Sage view, which will just simply say there's 2 remaining on order. So we try and make sense of this to the customer as they have a look at this form. Also on here, there's additional information. For example, if an order has been completed, we can go and drill into that, see what were the invoice numbers attached to that. There will be multiples here if there were more than one shipment or invoice. And of course, the user can drill into that document and have a look at that. If you choose to expose quotes to your customers, we've added functionality where you can allow a customer to post a quote on your system rather than an order. What that allows you to do, it's creating an RFQ, a request for quote system. Instead of a customer coming on and placing an order, a customer can come on and place a quote on your internal system. And that quote then comes into order entry as a quote. You can have a look at that, and then based on the rules you set up, you can then go ahead and approve that quote. I've got a number of quotes here. I've got quote number 5 here with a number of things on it. I've got quote number 4, etc. And you'll see that quote number 5 is waiting for approval. So it's waiting for you to have a look at that. And the way we deal with that is an optional field in order entry where you can say, yes, I've approved the order or not. Once a quote has been approved, it means that you've had a look at that quote and you've cleared that quote to be shipped, and the customer can then actually come in, see that quote has been cleared, and the customer can go ahead and create the order directly from this quote. So they can go ahead and action this quote. So around the issue of quotes, not only your ability to show quotes or your ability to take quotes, but to go through a review process on your side, approve the quote, and let the customer turn the quote into an order. Let's go ahead and finish up just about on this portion of the portal and have a look at order entry. Order entry, as Peter said, we are not presuming that this is going to be a web store, but it does allow your customers to come ahead and post orders. All the rules which you expect to be enforced inside of Sage 300 is being enforced on this document. So we do honor price lists. A customer will only be able to purchase what is on the price list. We will give you the option to create an override price list called a retail price list if you want to, and we will only show the items on that price list. So for example, if you want to limit down the items which a customer can order online, simply go ahead and create a retail price list, put the items on there you want the customers to be able to purchase, and that's what they'll be able to see. We also will honor all the pricing models. So however you've set up the pricing within Sage 300, that's going to be the pricing which is going to be here, including any contracts, any sales, any periods that you have attached to a particular pricing model. Again, the system is going to work very well on mobile phones. So if we shrink this down to a mobile kind of view, we keep the item ordering in view here at all times, so that the user can always see what they're busy ordering. And of course, we've taken this top portion of the screen and we allow the user to slide it out of way, so all they can see now is the ordering portion of that. Let's open this up again. Let's place an order. Customer may select any of the ship to locations which is attached to their AR account in accounts receivable. So these are ship to locations. They may go ahead and create a new one if they want to go ahead and do that. And then give us a PO number. So let's give what's today's date, the 2nd. So this is PO March 2. Requested delivery date, we can go ahead, the user can tell us when they want to have these things delivered. On the 31st is fine, and then please ship to Peter on March 2. Okay, I'm going to leave that spelling mistake in there just so you know I didn't pre-populate all these fields here. But so just so you know, I did that on purpose, right? Okay. Let's slide that out of the way and have a look at how we're going to process. So when the user now starts adding items here, remember, we do not have any of this data on the portal. So we do not synchronize data. There's no process you have to run daily. There's no day-end function. All the data is being read real-time out of the internal system. So this, as Peter said, is a set and forget. There's nothing you have to do periodically to make it work. There's nothing you have to do periodically to get data in and out of the system. We are reading it real-time. So as the user types in any information, we will go look that up based on the rule sets that I've already mentioned. And the user can now go ahead and place an order. And there are essentially 3 different levels of data that we will show the user based on how you set up the internal system. The easiest way is just a very quick go ahead and process the order. Just ask me the quantity. If there are different units of measure, we are going to ask that. If you allow price overrides, you could do that. Very typically, you will not allow a customer to override the price, but you may allow a salesperson to do so. So the price override is going to be available if I'm the appropriate person logging in. We could now expand on this and show a little bit more detail. So when we then say, let's go have a look at calculators, and the system was designed to be keyboard operated at this point. So at this point, I really do not need my mouse to navigate through the system anymore. So I'm going to select a calculator. What we now bring up, instead of just a flat kind of line entry, is we will bring up additional item information. So here's a calculator. Those 4 lines of additional item information comes from inventory control, the 4 additional item information lines on inventory control. And now the user can go ahead and place the order as they want to. So let's go ahead and add that. When the user selects an item or searches for an item, we will search through the SKU number or the item description, the 4 additional item information lines, but we will also give you the option to search through the customer item number. So if you have that running within Sage 300, you can open that up over here. So the customer literally can type in their own item number or their own item description. And based on what you have entered in Sage 300, we're going to display that for the customer. Let's go ahead and refine our entry to one further level. And that is, if you choose to do so, you can now add images to this. So if I go ahead and order a particular calculator now, I'll be able to show the customer an image of that calculator or multiple images of that calculator. So if you have multiples, he'll be able to scroll through these pictures. Now we have a far more sophisticated system here where when the user enters or orders, you can show them additional information, you can show them a picture of this particular product, and they can go ahead and enter that order. Okay, customer has now entered what they want to enter. There's some sort of a note over here for them. You control this within your internal admin portal, and the user can go ahead and place that order. This order is written directly in real time into the system. So order number 72 has now been written into the system. The user can, of course, go ahead and print themselves a copy. They can view a copy of this. A copy will be emailed to them. You will get a notification of this. So literally everything happening in the system, you will be aware of. We can flip through back. This was order number 72. Let's go back to our Sage in the background here. Go have a look at transactions, order entry. And order number 72 will be the last order that was entered in our system. Here we go. And here are the 3 items, the desk pad and the 2 calculators, which the user has entered. Let's wrap up this side of it. The user has now placed an order. We do give them a My Account and where they can change the password, etc. We do have a Contact Us form. This Contact Us will be sent through, of course, to your email. User will get a copy of that. This contact form will go into whatever notification system you've got set up. And that wraps up this side of it. I'll take a quick breather here to ask Peter if there were any more questions that I need to answer at this point.
No, nothing. I've just been answering some specific ones all the way along that were, very particular to a specific customer. But outside of that, you're good to go.
Thank you. Let's have a look at the admin portal. So again, before we go in here, I just want to reiterate that the portal is set and forget. Once you've set it up, it will not require attention from you unless you specifically want to change something or look up something. So in showing you the admin side of it, I do not want to overcomplicate it, and I do want to make this seem as if it's going to require, constant monitoring or attention from you. It does not. The system runs very well. This technology has been used by North49 in our full e-commerce systems for the past 10 years. It's not new technology. It's been tested. It's been field run for a very long time. So as I log in here, this is where you go if you want to go there. Let's have a look at it. When I log in as an administrator, the first thing I'm going to see is somewhat of a view here, which allows me to look through on what's happening on the portal. So I'll be able to see, month to date, year to date data of what receipts have been placed. I can look at that by value. So just give me an indication of how busy the portal is. I can have a look at that by amount. I can see the number of people that's logging into the system, and I can see what's called an unprocessed receipt. An unprocessed receipt in a Sage 300 system would, in theory, always be 0. If there's an unprocessed receipt, it means something went wrong with the system inserting the receipt into Sage, and you will be able to follow up and do that from here. If there is such an animal, you can go ahead and you can ask the system to reprocess and reinsert it back into Sage. So it's still not going to require you to manually do anything. The other functionality available through the admin portal is your control of customers. So you can have a look at the customers that are here. You can, if you chose to set up customers in a fashion where you need to authorize them, it will wait for approval. As you can see here, I've got a few guys waiting for approval. The other guys are active. You can search for a customer based on the username, the customer number. So who are all the users logged in or authorized for customer 1200? I'll be able to drill down and have a look at all the guys that are available for customer customer 1200. Again, sample data, you don't expect this kind of list when you're looking at live data. You can import customers if you currently have such a thing. You can export customers if you want to, so give you a list externally in spreadsheet format, and you can go ahead and add a customer at this point. You can edit a customer, you can make a customer inactive, you can put a customer on hold. So this is your entire control of the users logging into the system. The one thing we haven't touched on so far, and I'll have to circle back to that, is what we call a salesperson user. When you create a customer here or a user here, you have the option to create a salesperson user. What that does is it will give this user access to multiple accounts. So for example, outward facing, if you have a bookkeeper that is taking care of 5 accounts, you can create a quote-unquote salesperson for that bookkeeper, which will give him access to his 5 accounts. Internally facing, if you are using salespeople, you could create salespeople within, this is within Sage 300, attach that salespeople to that salesperson's 20 accounts, and then you can create a manager level, and then that manager will be able to see his 5 salespeople's 20 times 5 accounts, and so on and so on. So if you then control this within Sage 300, you can control circles of access and authority based on who the salesperson is within Sage and what accounts he has access to. If you check the allow all customers, you've created a super user. The super user will then have access to all the accounts lying inside of your system. I will go back and just show you that functionality very briefly. While we're talking about it, this is the one function which is currently receiving R&D. We want to improve on the salesperson's access to internal data. For example, a salesperson will be able to say, show me all the orders placed by my customers, or show me inventory data. I want availability. I want to see what's in different warehouses. I want to see what's on purchase order. When are those orders being expected to being received by the system? I want to see what's on sales order, and when do I expect to ship those items, and so on. So we want to give the salesperson a lot more access to the internal data than what he currently has. And as I say, that's in R&D. That will roll out over the next few months. We spoke about a broadcast message. Here is that broadcast. It is active, but the user obviously has seen it. Also, we've got active dates here, so we probably need to kind of update this for our demos, I guess. Special COVID-19 address here, dear customers. We can reset the broadcast. If we reset the broadcast, it will then be reshown to everybody, even if they've seen it before. So if we reset the broadcast here, everybody is going to see that broadcast again as they log in. Let's have a look at receipts very briefly. This is where we can see everything that has been processed. So we will be able to look at everything that we've done today. So here is our invoice number 61 that was paid, etc. Here is the previous document that were paid. For some reason, they didn't go in. So we can check this off and reprocess them back into the system. This will allow you to look for any data that you want to look up. So if a customer comes to you and says, I made a payment, I cannot see it, simply go and enter the customer number, filter down by that customer, and you're going to get all the payments done by that customer. An incomplete document here means that the user told us on the portal that they want to pay. They went off to the gateway and we never heard back from them. So they landed up on the gateway, found out they didn't have their credit card with them, couldn't complete the transaction, or saw a squirrel running by outside and never completed. Well, for whatever reason, they indicated to us as the portal that they were going to make a payment, but that payment never came through back to us. So that allows us to then control receipts. We can search for just about anything. When was invoice number 65 paid? And we're going to get a list of anything that contains, invoice number 65. So it's a fairly powerful search engine here to allow you to answer any questions as they may arrive from particular customers. Let's have a look at the portal settings and what we can control. So this is where you will now be able to control your portal and what happens in it. First of all, is your portal active? So you can make your portal inactive for any reason you want to at any point. Do you want us to recognize the allow on web flag in AR? In accounts receivable, there's a flag that says allow web purchasing. If you turn this on, then we will not allow those customers that have not got that flag to log in. So this is a control measure if you want to limit the customers who you want to give access to the portal. Self-registration, we briefly spoke about that. The questions that you may ask them to verify that they are who they say they are. And if they answer that correct, do you want to auto-approve them or do you want to set them on a list waiting for your approval? This is what your portal is going to look like. So the sample company Inc. here, we give a lot of room at the top here for you to enter or put a graphic in here. So very typically you could have a logo plus some sort of deal with us because we're the best company in the world, text next to it. So it allows you to do a little bit of marketing, put a summer theme on this, put a holiday theme on this. So however you want to use the space effectively to market and speak to your customers, you can go ahead and do so. To upload one is as simple as this. Let's go and click down. I've got a bunch here. Let's turn this into, what shall we make this? Let's turn this into a Sage 300 Cloud portal. So that's what we want at the top. So we can go ahead and just save the changes here. And we've now updated our logo to Sage 300 Cloud. So for you to change that logo is as simple as simply uploading the logo. The default language, when I land on the page, what do you want that to be? Here is your company information that appears on the bottom of the page here, so you can control that. Your phone number, your company URL, your welcome message. So this is where you're going to type in the welcome message. You can change this. So, welcome during this COVID period, whatever you want to put in here. If you are running a multi-language system, you may want to make this in both the languages that you've got there, because of course we cannot translate your text into sensible other language. So of course it's just going to display the way in which you've got this. Gives you control over the portal in that sense. The next one, features and functions. Based on what you have, you'll be able to turn things on and off. So that pop-up notice that came up, you can turn that off. View orders, view transactions, whatever you want to turn on and off. Where do you want us to store your credit cards? Remember, we spoke about that within Sage or on the portal. How do you want your order status to view, display, determined based on the order information or an optional field? So we will show the order status on order entry based on what we read. It's been entered, it's been printed, whatever has happened to it. But if you have a more sophisticated order tracking or order process tracking system, you can point us at an optional field and we will then show that as the status of the order. So by default, the order comes in, you've got an optional field called status, and by default it sets to order received. Then somebody goes in, changes that to being reviewed. We'll look at that, gone into production, being produced, ready to ship. Whatever you want to refine that order status with, you can go ahead and do that here, and we'll show that on the system. We spoke very briefly about which of the document types you want the user to be able to see. Here you can turn them on and off. So if you don't typically charge, for example, interest, just turn that off. It's not going to appear for the user to have a look at. Your domain name, very typically, again, you would store the portal on your own domain so that it looks familiar. If you already have a website, abc.com or sampleinc.com, you can subdomain that. Typically, it doesn't cost anything. You already own that domain, so you make it portal@saminc.com or login@saminc.com or whatever is going to make sense to your customer base. Billing information, just as your information with us. Payment processing is where you are going to set up the payment processing. Again, typically we will help you with this because it differs from from processor to processor. So depending on who your payment processor is, these questions may differ. We are standing by to help you with that. So we will help you set this up, test it, etc., to make sure it's going to work. You have the ability to restrict payment by customer. So you can allow particular customers to pay accounts online or not. If a customer is not allowed, of course, they just simply don't see those icons when they log into the system. You can determine the maximum amount that you want the customer to pay via credit card. So if it exceeds that amount, they have to pay by some other means, typically ACH, and then allow partial payments. So do you want the user to override the amount? Not always a smart idea. What we would recommend is that you would say to a customer, if you have a problem with the document, contact us, let's sort it out, we'll adjust it, and then you pay it. Because if you allow a customer to overwrite the amount and they don't pay the full amount of an invoice, it ought to immediately spark a phone call. Why did you only pay X? You may not notice that as the payment comes into the system. So even though there is a demand for this, we kind of caution that you think through it. Connect setup allows you to set up the connection string of how we speak to your internal system, notifications. Here is where you control notifications. There's essentially a number of notification types. So technical contact, if anything goes wrong and we could not insert a document, for example, we're going to notify the technical contact to please check what's going on. The AR contact is going to get everything regarding new users and payments being received. The order entry contact is going to get any orders being processed, and the contact us contact is where, if I fill in a contact us form, where is that going to go? Now, looking at each one of these, of course, the email could be a distribution group, so it could be support at North49, for example. It doesn't have to be a person, as long as we can send the email to that. Here is where you're going to add your Slack and Microsoft Teams integrations. It's really very simple. We've got how-to videos on YouTube if you want to set that up. It is really, really simple to do that. Slack, for example, all you need to do is click here. We'll take you to Slack. We'll ask you to log in. We'll ask you to create that, what's called a webhook. You paste that webhook in here and you're done. Do you want to include details or just say, hey, somebody paid, or do you want to include details of what they paid? And here you can turn every individual function on and off. So if you want only email, just simply go and turn these other guys off and they're not going to be there. Finally, let's have a look at your order entry control. What's your default location, or do you want to use the customer location? What's your default prices? Do you want to use the customer prices? So I'm not going to go through each one of these individually. Do you want to allow miscellaneous charges, etc.? This allows you to set up and control what order entry is going to do and how it's going to react. We spoke about price override, yes, no, or salesperson only. Do you want to post orders on hold or post as a quote, etc.? So here is your control of order entry and how you want it to work. Finally, we've got some help here. So Connect is the component that gets installed locally. We will typically help you do that, but you can come and download it here and we will give you detailed information on how to set that up. We will also help you with your firewall settings because we need access to your firewall. We do have a little test connection here, so we will go and check whether we can communicate with your internal system or not. So, and then a contact us, which allows you to contact us directly. You do have the ability to check your account with us if your account is handled by us. It does happen that accounts may be handled by an external party, your dealer or Sage, for example, and then this won't be available. But if your account sits with North49, we will likewise allow you to draw into your account with us. We'll show you a renewal date of your subscription, etc. So I think we've done through the one thing which I would like to just very briefly touch on. We spoke about salespeople and their login. I did say that our R&D currently is being focused on enhancing the capability of a salesperson, but let me log in as a salesperson right now. And what the system will do is allow you to log in. So we'll check your credentials, who you are, etc., and then we'll stop. And then we're going to ask you, who are you? And we, based on who you are, we then going to allow you access to the customers which you have access to. Who do I have access to? I don't know. Let's see. And apparently I have access to no one. I've forgotten. Oh my. Anyway, I do apologize, but I have set myself up as a limited customer, and now I don't know who I have access to. This will allow you to then select the customer who you have access to, and you can then drill down and log in as that particular customer.
Questions, a couple of questions, Etienne, before we were just about at the top of the hour, so we should try and maybe get to these before we finish off here. So one was around the salesperson, and so what the question was, why would somebody use this as opposed to just having access to Sage 300? And I guess that the simple answer is, well, the portal uses one user license overall for like unlimited numbers of users. If you wanted every one of your sales reps to have access to Sage 300, that means you have to have a Sage user license for everybody who wants access to Sage 300. So there's a clear cost implication there. So as Etienne pointed out here, this is a quick, easy, and inexpensive way to give your salespeople access to place orders, look up customer information, and all that stuff. And we'll be improving this over time.
Yeah, let me add to that, Peter, because it's actually kind of more complex than that. To give anybody access to your Sage 300 system currently, unless you go with the new cloud, Azure cloud install, which by the way is absolutely kick butt beautiful. So, you know, if you have need for that, please speak to your dealer. It really works very well. But for you to host locally and give your users access, you have to also then implement IIS and network services and web services and so on. You've created a massive overhead on your administrative maintenance of your internal Sage 300 system, which is not necessary here. That's one additional piece of information. So this will be a lot less complicated and therefore a lot less cost intensive for you to give access. Number two, this runs very well on mobile devices and other devices. So somebody could be out at a client on his iPhone and look up data, which is a lot more challenging using the Sage internal web services.
And the next question was around payments. Can the portal support split payments? So I don't know, maybe split between two credit cards or split between credit card ACH or something like that?
The answer is no, because the integration with the gateway is different. So in order to do that, you'll have to give them access to override the amount. They can come in, override the amount they want to pay by credit card and make the payment, and then select the invoice or the document again and make an ACH payment for that. So you, the integration to the actual gateway looks different. The information they have to add looks different. So it's just not physically possible to integrate with the gateway in that manner.
Okay. So let's maybe get things to start to wrap up. If you can drop your share, and then I can share my screen again, Etienne, and then we can. What's going on here? There we go. Just to give you some pricing information here. Whoops, I guess I have to click that share button. Some pricing information here. So this is how the portal is priced. So if you just want click to pay, $795. Oh, by the way, there's a $175 setup fee regardless of what you choose here. So, and that's one time only. If you want just click to pay, that's $795 as an annual subscription. And so that's pretty simple, straightforward. That's all that is. If you want to go with a more full-featured customer portal, then you're looking at $14.95 annually. And then from there, you just add on other capabilities. You can add online payments for another $700 annually, stored cards for another $180. And do note that here, if you do go with the online payment option, click to pay is included. So you don't have to add that price onto this price. It's already part of this. And then the only other add-on right now is the quick order entry for $11.95. Etienne was talking about us enhancing the sales rep functionality. And as we do that, we will probably offer that as a separate add-on as well, because it's going to be significantly more than you see now. So that's something that's coming, but it's not there yet. So we don't have any pricing for that. And do remember, we require a Sage user license for our exclusive access and access to a static IP address through your firewall. So please do be aware that we do need to have access through your firewall to a static IP address and a Sage user license. Outside of that, this is what you are looking at. For the click to pay side, maybe you'll need some assistance from your Sage partner to configure that link, but really that's about it. And that's our presentation. I don't see any more questions or anything else in the chat, so I thank everybody for their time and their attention. Feel free to get in touch with us if you'd like to discuss your specific situation, or if you've got something interesting you'd like to do. This is the portal kind of out of the box, so to speak, but we do some customer specific things that might be unique to your situation. We're certainly happy to discuss them. And with that, thank you for your time.